Module 14, the respiratory system. Voice. We often take our ability to talk or sing for granted, but it seems almost intuitive for us to control our voice. Think about reading a children's storybook out loud to a group of children. You may start with a normal voice, but as the story unfolds, you might speak loudly to emphasize a character's booming words. You then may speak in a whisper to add some drama. You may make your voice high-pitched or very deep as each character speaks. Our language actually begins in the brain, where we have thoughts or read words and then begin to form those words with our mouths and our voice structures. The vocal cords are found in the larynx, and there are two types. Looking at this anterior view of the larynx, you see the true vocal cords or vocal folds. They're below the false vocal cords or vestibular folds. These cords are actually mucosa-covered ligaments. The false vocal cords have the job of helping to close off the larynx during deglutition so that food doesn't make it into the trachea. Actually, the true vocal cords also help to close off this area and do a better job at forming a seal. The true vocal cords are the ones responsible for producing sound. This is the anterior of the larynx. The thyroid cartilage is here, and it creates what we sometimes call the Adam's apple. You can see this as a slight protrusion on the neck, and it noticeably moves up and down when you swallow. Now, this is looking at the opening into the larynx from above. The epiglottis is here, and the false vocal cords are here. The true vocal cords have a muscular attachment to help finely control their movement, and the space between these vocal folds is the glottis. Now, when you want to make a sound, you first need air to pass through the larynx, so you first have to inhale. You then have to move the skeletal muscles that move the true vocal cords into the airway. That makes the glottis narrower. Then as you exhale, you make air move past those true vocal cords, and they vibrate. Let's say you want to hum a tune. In order to do that, you need to control the tension and thickness of the vocal cords, so the delicate skeletal muscles contract in such a way to do this. That will make the vocal folds vibrate at different rates, and the pitches you are humming will change. Now, you can also control how loudly you make a sound, right? That means you can change your volume. That's due to the displacement of the vibrations in air, which requires more air force or less. More displacement, louder sound. You know, if you want to let out a loud shout, you first take in a larger amount of air and forcefully exhale as you yell. A good way to understand some of the components of our voice is to look at how a guitar makes sound. I can pluck a string on the guitar to make a soft sound or a loud one. This is volume. Our vocal cords can create loud or soft sounds by how much air we push past them. This is due to how much displacement of the vibrations in the air back and forth. Like our vocal cords, the larger back and forth motion of the guitar strings, the larger the displacement of the air, and thus the louder the sound. So we can control the loudness of our voice by how forcefully air passes through the larynx. Now listen to these sounds I'm plucking. It's the same string of the guitar, but each time I do it, it makes a higher and higher sound. This is pitch. Pitch is controlled by the frequency of the vibrations in the vocal cords. For the guitar, the shorter the string, the higher the frequency it vibrates. It goes back and forth faster, and that produces a higher pitch. I can also create higher pitches if I pluck thinner strings, or if I increase how tightly the string is in tension, if I were to use this thing right here. Our voices change pitch in a similar way. We can alter the thickness and tension of our vocal cords to make higher or lower sounds. The pitch of our voice also has to do with the length of our vocal cords, but that's something that we really cannot change. As children, our vocal cords are quite short, so our voices are very high-pitched. But as we grow, our vocal cords grow in length too, making our voices a bit deeper. As a rule, men tend to have longer vocal cords than women and therefore have deeper voices, able to reach lower pitches. Now, there are some things you don't have control of when it comes to the overall sound of your voice. For example, the original length of one's vocal cords varies from one person to another. You can vary that length due to the skeletal muscles that can stretch them, but only to an extent. The thinner you make your vocal cords, the higher the pitch. That's why children have much higher voices than adults. Their vocal cords are much thinner. The tension can be varied too. The higher the tension, the higher the pitch. Voice also has resonance. What I mean is that you have various spaces in your body that contain air. Areas such as the chest cavity, pharynx, and sinuses in the skull. The air in these spaces will vibrate as you speak, and that gives voice its resonance. If you have a cold, often the sinuses in the skull are swollen and filled with mucus. That makes them a different shape, and the resonance in your voice changes a bit. The larger those cavities, the greater the resonance in one's voice. That's why acoustic guitars have a hollow cavity below the strings. That's to provide an air chamber for resonance. The bigger the chamber in the guitar, the greater the resonance. A final aspect of voice has to do with articulation. That's one's ability to make intricate sounds as they speak. Talking involves highly coordinated muscular movement of the tongue, lips, pharynx, larynx, palate, and teeth. Try this. Say the sentence, "I love anatomy." Say it very slowly once, noticing how you use specific motions for your tongue, lips, and teeth. Then say it once more and notice how you are moving air through the lungs, pharynx, larynx, and how the vocal cords vibrate. All of these muscular movements are controlled by nerves that help them to relax or contract in just the right way to make the words you want to say.